All right, guys, let's jump into the game against Rutgers here. 35-16, I think it was.
35-16.
And felt really bad in the first half, like went into halftime trailing 9-7. Ooh, looks like we're about to go down by even more, by 2 scores, and then bada boom, bada bing, pick 6. Everything changed. Ohio State gained the momentum. We never really did click offensively. Greg Schiano did some things defensively that were really smart. He played too high safety and what they call clouding the outside to kind of blanket Egbuka and Harrison. Forced Ryan Day to run the football. And we know, Chris, Ryan Day don't like to be forced to run the football. But they forced him to run the football, and they forced Kyle McCord to take all the underneath stuff. And he struggled with that. And it's because they don't practice that a lot. They are constantly practicing go downfield, go for the big play, put your foot to the gas, pedal the metal, let's go. And Schiano knows that, and he played very well. But all that being said, Ohio State still comes away with a nice win. JR, you're the guest. I will let you go first. What are your initial thoughts of Ohio State's win?
Well, I thought it was a lot closer than the score indicated.
Yeah.
They were up 9-7 at the halftime. And, man, I think there was like a portion of time where like literally 12 minutes went by and Ohio State only had the ball for 17 seconds when Kyle McCord threw that pick. I was nervous at that time. That's the first time this season where I've been nervous because if you listen to the Big Ten HUddle, I really do like Rutgers a lot. I think Rutgers is a really good team this year. I think Kyle Monangai is the real deal. Chris is our resident Rutgers hater on the Big Ten HUddle, so he makes sure to get that known. But I really feel like Rutgers and Greg Schiano, they had what they needed to beat Ohio State this year. I'm not sure they could put it all together and play that perfect game, but boy, there at halftime, it seemed like they were playing about as perfect of a game as they could, and Ohio State just didn't have the offense to answer, and it was a little scary for me.
Chris?
First of all, I do not hate Rutgers. All I said was they were going to not get to 8 wins this year. 6 wins was the best they could hope for, and that they would lose their last 4 games. I'm not backing down from that.
Okay.
I guarantee you they don't win 8. They might beat Iowa, who's just so tremendously awful, but that's for another day. Eric, we've talked about it. They seem to do what they got to do. This is a defense-driven team, and offensively, we're getting just enough. And it is what they're going to give us is what we're going to take. McCord did not look exceptional, though he threw. If you look at the stat line, other than the lack of yards, to look at the stat line, you'd think McCord had a decent game. And honestly, he probably should have completed more passes than he did. Our receivers dropped some really good passes.
There were at least 4 drops I can remember off the top of my head.
And honestly, Harrison's. I'll give Harrison his. That was thrown a little bit behind him. But Julian Fleming and, the Gee drop.
G. Scott had one. Drop. Fleming had one. Even Egbuka had one that I can recall.
And then Egbuka not getting to the sticks. I mean, little stuff like that. But it's just, I don't get what's going on right now. But we did manage to scrape out a win. But I will also say this. If not for that pick 6, if Rutgers goes in and scores,
we're talking about different game
and can control the ball, running the ball the way they did, I don't know that Ohio State comes out of there with a victory.
Amazingly enough, did you guys know that win was the first time ever in Ohio State history that Ohio State started a series with a team and won the first 10 games? They were 9-0 against Oregon and lost. You say, what about Maryland? They're 9-0 against Maryland. Maryland dodged us in COVID year, so they've only played them 9. You go back and look at every Big Ten team. Indiana beat us like the first 5 times we played them. Crazy. Like, you go back. Ohio State wasn't very good at football in the 1800s.
Well, that's when we were losing to, like, Oberlin.
Kenyon College.
Say, when you were playing YMCAs back then.
Ohio Wesleyan.
Yes. Yeah. So those games still count in the record.
When we were playing an SEC schedule.
Yes. So Yeah. So crazy enough, that's the first time that ever happened. But all right, you guys know the drill. Letter grade time. Offense and defense, put it in the chat. Let us know what you think. What letter grades you want to give the offense and the defense on the day. Chris, I guess I will start with you first. You want to go with offense or defense first, buddy?
Let's go with the tough one. Let's go with the defense or the
Uh,
offense rather.
all right, offense, we had 189 passing yards, 139 rushing yards for a total of 328 yards yesterday, 6.0 yards per play, only 15 first downs. We were 6 of 12 on third down, 1 of 2 on fourth down. We possessed the ball for 24 minutes and 24 seconds and had 1 turnover. Chris, what's the letter grade?
Torn between a B minus and a C plus. I'm going to go with a C plus. That's just not enough yardage. And honestly, if we don't have Travion Henderson in that game yesterday, God help us, because you look at this. I mean, we had like 328 yards of total offense. He had 200 or 326. He had 208 of those yards. He accounted for over half the offensive productivity. Um, McCord, I thought, yeah, he made some mistakes, but overall, he didn't look terrible. The offensive line, I will say this: we didn't get a bunch of penalties. But again, I've got some issues with a few issues with the play calling and just the drops. That's what did it for me, I think.
I'm with you. I have C plus on my offensive grade as well. So that's 2 of us. JR, what'd you give him?
I'm a little bit more optimistic than you guys. I gave it a B minus because I felt like the second half the offense really turned into what they needed to be. I have been the biggest critic of Kyle McCord in the first half of anybody out there, because I think put Kyle McCord out there in the first half and it's the Joe Bowserman show as far as I'm concerned. But the way I look at it was they played terrible in the first half, but they did what they needed to do in the second half. They only had 4 drives in the second half, and 3 of those 4 were touchdowns. So I do like that this is a team that when they don't perform in the first half, they come back and they play well in the second half. I want them to put it all together at some point, and so that's why I can't go any higher than a B minus.
And guys, let's not forget, Rutgers is a top 10 defense. I mean, they are not a joke, and that's a top 10 defense after having played Ohio State and Michigan.
And I think they gave up their very first 40-plus yard play, as we did as well, in
Yeah.
this game.
Yes.
So we both traded that.
The first one we gave up was the old Fumblerooski.
Yeah.
Don't get me started.
Leave it to Greg Schiano
Hey, man,
to play a trick play.
For years, kitchen sink. That's Greg Schiano's, MO, Pull it all out.
tip of the hat, man. You knew it was coming at some point. We all talked about it. So, all right, let's flip it to the other side of the football, the defense. So, defensively, the stats were not as great as they have been, guys. We gave up 129 passing yards, 232 on the ground for 361. That means if you're paying attention, we got outgained 361 to 328 in this game. Yards per play was 5.3. First downs allowed, 22. We gave up 22 first downs. They were 4 of 13 on third down, however. Fourth down efficiency, 1 of 3. Time on the field was 35 minutes and 36 seconds. And they did have that one big turnover. Guys, the red zone was the story of this football game. We were excellent in the red zone. We scored touchdowns every time. They kicked field goals and turned the ball over. That's the story of the game. My defensive letter grade for this game was a B plus. JR, what say you?
I was kind of low on the defense, so if I was giving it just a regular grade, I would say a B, but I also have to take into consideration that guys like Denzel Burke, Lathan Ransom were out in this game, so I'm going to give them an A minus because it was a lot of younger guys. And I like the way Jermaine Matthews is playing.
Oh, he's good.
I love that kid. I
Yeah.
think that he has everything. And I hear Jim Knowles talk about him in the press conferences, and you can tell when Jim Knowles talks about Jermaine Matthews, it's like he's talking about Tommy Eichenberg. There is just something about that kid that Jim Knowles loves, and I think he's going to do fantastic in this system in the future. He's already doing fantastic. But the reason why I give it a better letter grade as well is because I think Sonny Styles really showed out and played the way he needed to play to fill in for Lathan Ransom.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Chris?
Well, I'll tell you, for me, I actually also went with the A minus. Yes, we gave up more rushing yards, but first of all, we were against the best running back in the Big Ten statistically right now. Also, you look at it, we did give up a huge 45 yards of that run to the fumble Rooski. Is that an excuse? No, but I think it's calls for a little forgiveness. I did not like the penalties. The penalties obviously got to me a little bit, but overall, I think they did a good job, as you mentioned, Eric, of keeping these guys out of the end zone. And I'll tell you what, his stat line doesn't show it. But my God, when we needed a play made, did Josh Proctor not just seem to come up every time we needed a big play made in this game? I mean, he's the one that laid the wood that gave Hancock that big interception,
Yep.
So, I went an A minus. I thought they were playing against I think, very underrated and very solid Rutgers team that you and I talked about this, Eric. I think arguably could be the third or fourth best team in the Big Ten right now.
Yeah, I actually agree with you. Sorry about that, guys. I got distracted making sure we were live on Rumble. We're live on Rumble. You're watching us on Rumble.
And
Thank
we
you very
should
much.
Be.
Offense. Larry Daniels says offensive letter grade is C. Defensive letter grade is A minus. Jay Thompson, offense C minus. Defense B plus. Brian Ober says defense B plus, offense B, and I think I got through all of them.
But my favorite has to be the guy who gave us the
Chris Smith.
Team,
there
it is.
I give the
2002 plus.
Chris is speaking my love language there. Yeah, I've been saying I don't know, JR, if you remember, because I know you watch our show too sometimes when you have time. I've said back in the preseason, I think during the Ohio State preview, I told everybody this team might be more 2002 than 2014. Man, I thought that. Boy, was I dead on, and I was dead on about that, man. I kind of wish I wouldn't have been so right now because it's been frustrating, but.
That was actually the first episode I listened to of you guys. I listened to that one, and as soon as I heard that, I thought to myself, I don't know if this guy knows what he's talking about. This is Ryan Day. I mean, what are you talking about here? This is Ryan Day we're talking about. He's having a great quarterback and rely on defense. Yeah, who cares? And then I thought back to that during the Indiana game as I was sitting there in the stands with my dad thinking to myself, yeah, this team might have a really good defense. The offense might just suck. So
Sorry.
I'll give you your credit. Credit where it's due, Eric.
I'll take it wherever I can get it.
But since Travion's been back, we've at least been around that 5 yards per carry mark.
Hey, you want to? All right. You all want to see something scary? You've been watching Travion the last couple weeks. Go back and watch some film of 2002. One Maurice Claret. I'm telling you, it's freaky similar how the offenses kind of look at right there. So. All right, let's jump over to our Buckeye leaves, guys, because I know we got to hustle. JR's got a show to do here at 9 o'clock, so we need to make sure to get these in. All right, offensive player of the game, Travion Henderson. Any arguments?
No. When you account for more than 50% of the offense, you're a player of the game.
JR,
I will say I think Travion Henderson is the answer, but I also want to give credit to this offensive line. I think this was the best game this offensive line had all season, other than like maybe the Youngstown State Western Kentucky games. I was really, really impressed with the run blocking. Donovan Jackson, I mean, if you guys go back and watch this game, there were certain times where he just got it to a Rutgers defender and just completely mauled him. I mean, there was no guy on that Rutgers defense that was ever going to take down Donovan Jackson. And so I want to point out the offensive line because I've been critical of them all year, but they did a good job today. So.
No, Jay, I did not get Aaron's participation trophies this week. The great one. But other than Simmons, JR, Simmons, he's I mean, that guy's so early.
Yeah.
I'm not going to finish what has come to my mind.
He moves early every time.
He's fast on everything.
Yeah. I will say I think we missed Cade Stover a little bit in that game.
Yeah, we definitely
Scott had a few lookout blocks out there. Look out on this block.
Yep.
Yeah. Brian Oberst, Trey Henderson, player of the game. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, defensive player of the game. Now this one's a little bit more difficult, guys. I struggled with this one. I'll go ahead and tell you who I went with. I went with Ty Hamilton. 3 of them were solo. He had a big stack, and he held presence for the first time this year. I know he's played in games and he's played well, but for some reason I just felt his presence more. He was my defensive player of the game. Chris, who'd you have?
I actually had Ty Hamilton as well. I mean, like you said, 6 tackles, a sack. That was a big time sack at a big time in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. Chris, I'm with you. If he wouldn't have got hurt, I probably would have went with Proctor. That was a huge play, and he was playing well.
He was playing very well.
Stats just weren't there, unfortunately, for him. But stats don't tell the whole story.
Yeah.
JR, who'd you get?
Mine actually, and I already talked about him earlier, Jermaine Matthews Jr. This guy played the second most coverage snap out of anybody on the Ohio State defense. I am falling in love with Jr. as we speak, and I'm sitting here thinking to myself, maybe we're okay if Denzel Burke doesn't come back. And I immediately kick myself and say, no, that's stupid. But I think Jermaine Matthews Jr. is the real deal, and I loved what he did in this game.
Real quick on that, it's nice to have depth, obviously, and that was the starting corners next year because both of them are young. Matthews Jr. is a freshman, and Igbinosun is a sophomore, and hear me out. Igbinosun's brother, transfer portal, anybody?
Tell you what, he looked pretty good against us.
He did.
He was everywhere.
He did.
He looked better than Davison did. I didn't think Davison looked great in this game. Not that he looked bad, but he didn't look like his normal self.
Playing at home in front of people, and the home crowd and brother's team, and there could be some things there with that.
Yeah.
But I still love even when he gets a penalty, I'm not mad at him because I love that physicality. So
yeah. Well, I talked to somebody who is around the Ohio State program, not a coach or anything like that, but I talked to somebody who is around the Ohio State program, and they told me that what they've heard from him, or what he's heard from people in the program, is that when Davison came in, it completely changed the secondary with how they kind of operate, because Davison, he just led by example of pushing up on every single receiver, and the receivers were talking. They were like, man, this guy pushes every single time, and Davison was like... He was like, yeah, of course I am, because you're really, really good, so I'm going to try to beat you off the ball. And it just kind of infected a lot of the other guys. So I think that he's made a bigger impact this season than people realize.
Defensive play of the game, Hancock pick 6.
Yep.
Right? Any argument?
Nope.
Okay.
Give Proctor some love on that one too, Eric.
You want me? Do you?
Give Proctor a little bit of love for laying the wood.
He didn't lay the wood. He avoided getting a targeting hit penalty is what happened.
Well, he probably should have gotten called. You're right.
If he would, and then he got hurt for it. If he would have went in there like we know he could, he would have ended somebody's career, maybe his own, because that would have been the most hellacious collision we might have seen all year. He let up and moved to the side and took it on the shoulder. Took a helmet on the shoulder, which I wasn't sure if that's what the injury was or if it was more concussed. I couldn't tell. But pick six definitely is what the play of the game was. But yeah, Brian Oberst agrees with us.
Yep.
All right, the offensive play of the game. JR, I'll let you go first. This is our last one.
Oh, I think anything that Travion Henderson did. I don't know if there's a specific that I have in mind other than just anything that he was able to do out there. I did really like that back shoulder throw, which I'm not convinced Kyle McCord meant to do, to Marvin Harrison Jr. for that last touchdown. I really liked that one.
Okay, so how about this? How about the 65-yard pass and run?
Yep.
Yeah.
When he came, that was a huge play at that point of the game.
Yep.
And man, he almost took that to the house.
Yeah.
But to me, that play signified what kind of day he had. Chris, what do you think?
And I had that same play, Eric. I mean,
Okay.
he shook off tackles. He showed that everything we love about him. The burst. We saw the burst, we saw the speed, we saw the moves, all of it on the way.
JR, thank you again so much for coming in. Where can everybody follow you? And when we're done with the show, head on over to the Big Ten HUddle on YouTube. Big show tonight. JR is going to go over the Big Ten scores, all the happenings, and all of that juiciness he brought is going to be talked about, maybe even dissected a little more, possibly.
A little bit. We're going to have some guys on. We have a Rutgers fan on, and then we also have a casual Big Ten on. I know who he's a fan of, but I'm not allowed to say. But he'll have some things to share with that as well. Wink, wink.
You don't have any of Victor's Nation on when you're breaking this one down for him tonight, JR?
I asked all of them. They were all too scared. So
I can't blame him.
Oh,
just kidding. They had to work, and the one has a 4-month-old twin. So
oh my gosh. Yeah.
Unfortunately,
Well,
I couldn't be there.
If he's looking for a babysitter, Connor's available.
He needs to make some extra money, huh?
Yeah.
$55,000 a year.
Got to pay for them 50-yard line tickets somehow, man.